Welcome to the Legally Speaking podcast, powered by Kasoon Car. I'm your host, Rob Hanna. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Erica Stanford, who, amongst many other things, is the founder of the Crypto Curry Club, the UK's #1 rated networking and educational events in crypto, blockchain, AI technology for sustainability. So welcome, Erica.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We were talking off air about our icebreaker questions, so I'm looking forward to your response to this. But we do sort of ask on the before going into all of your illustrious career and what you've achieved, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, how real would you rate the hit TV series Suits?
I mean, I have absolutely no idea. I've never seen it. I couldn't even tell you what it's about. So I'm going to guess it's loads of people wearing suits, and seeing as everyone is in tracky bums at the moment because of lockdown, let's go with 0.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a fair response. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show, and you're very much working in an emerging world. But before we sort of go on to talk all about that, it's really good for our listeners to know a bit about your background and sort of how you got to where you are today. So do you want to tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So I studied economics at Edinburgh and then ended up working in sort of sales and marketing for a bunch of tech companies, and then got into the emerging tech space. A friend called me up out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in a while, and he'd basically heard about cryptocurrency. This was before it was mainstream and everyone sort of really knew about it, and wanted a research partner. And apparently he'd gone through all his list of names in his phone, and apparently I was the biggest geek amongst them. So he thought I'd be a good research buddy to look into this. That is, I guess it's true. If I find something interesting, I tend to just sit down and read everything I possibly can about it. And probably go a bit overboard, just sort of going into things if I'm interested. So I don't know. I didn't know what the term meant. I thought it sounded strange. So I basically told him what I thought he could do with the idea, and that it was a waste of my time and it wasn't going to happen. Then he called it again and saying I should look into it, and again, and then I did, and I just started reading up about what this crypto was. I thought, okay, if he's being so persevering, then there must be something. And I pretty much got hooked then. I think what really grabbed out to me, you've got this concept where you can send money, digital money, basically from A to B, without needing anyone's permission, without having to go through banks or any sort of centralized entity, without really having to pay anything, and it sends so fast. So I bought little bits, and it really sends so quickly. And I'd lived in I traveled a lot around Asia by this point, traveled a lot around Central America, lived in Buenos Aires in Argentina during the economic crash. So I'd experienced a lot of economic volatility and seen a lot of what happens when banks and governments don't necessarily do what you might want with money. And I'd seen a lot of protests there. And also I'd spent one summer just traveling around Guatemala when I was just, a late teenager probably. I think it was one of my summers at uni, and I just got mugged I think it was 4 times in a row over a couple months.
Wow.
And got to the point that I had a grand total of 0 cards left and no ability to withdraw money. They'd all just been stolen. So I was in this middle of nowhere place and just walked for miles to the nearest Western Union, and called my dad, who was in England, and he kindly went to the Western Union the next day and sent me money, which was very nice of him. But that took 3 days to arrive and cost 14%, which is quite a lot of money. And I remembered that experience, just thinking it probably doesn't really need to take them so long or need to cost them so much to send you this money. And I think just a lot of my experiences from being abroad, you realize how much of the world's population is just dependent on basically these remittance companies who have literally no access to banking. And, you read up, you've got a third of the world's population. It's about 2.5 billion people that have literally no access to banking and just can't send money easily from A to B. And if they can, it costs them a lot of money. average for remittances around the world is 6.9%. So that's what it costs a third of the world's population just to send money to anyone. But it can be up to 30%. And then even just in the UK and in banking, it's pretty outrageous, some of the more traditional banks. But if you look at what you used to have to pay to just send money abroad, I mean, it was a 25 quid flat fee and days of delays. And then you've got this internet, this digital currency that you can just spend instantly and with really low costs. And you don't need to rely on any infrastructure. I just saw how big that was going to get and how exciting it was, and just started reading everything I could about how it worked and what use cases were. So that was a few years ago now.
Great. Well, I think that kind of answers my first question in terms of starting with the basics in terms of what is cryptocurrency for our listeners. And I think you've kind of summarized and gave some good sort of headline examples there. So thanks for that. But another big part, obviously, is blockchain. So. And I know you're sort of doing a lot of work, and a lot of your events are around that. So again, for our listeners listening in terms of a very sort of simplistic overview, what would you describe, or how would you describe blockchain?
It's a difficult one because it's got so many use cases. I mean, blockchain, in a way, it's like a sort of accounting software. It's a technology that allows you to basically keep track of what's happening, but you've got much more of an audit trail than you would with a traditional, say, an Excel spreadsheet. So one of the things you've got with blockchain is it stores information and transactions chronologically. But unlike with, say, an Excel spreadsheet where you could wipe the data and not necessarily know who's deleted bits of information in some cases, with blockchain, every entry is logged. So whilst you can add to it or make changes, you can't really undo what's happened, and it would require an awful lot of computing power to do so. So, I mean, describing what blockchain is harder because there's so many different use cases, but probably for people to get an idea of exactly what it is, it's an idea to look at some of the actual use cases. So it's a way of logging transactions, be that money sent or information sent, and you can see exactly who's done what and who's got what at what stage. So there's all sorts of different abilities to see more clearly what's happening. It might be that if you want to send, buy something from somebody in the simplest form, you can send almost like queries to see that they've got enough money for what you want to sell them, but without needing to show more information. So it's being used for example, a lot in identity, where you can have a digital record that's permanent about people. So it might be about their education or about their identities. One example is, for example, the UN is using blockchain to give digital records to refugees from Syria who've had all of their education records wiped, all of their histories wiped, who have no way of proving who they are or what they've studied or what passport they have. Because their passports or their educational records were all in paper, whereas had those records been digitized and stored on blockchain, it wouldn't matter had they had to leave the country or had those physical records be destroyed. There would have been a permanent digital record for all of their data entries, which might be their education or their birth certificates or their work or qualifications, for example. I'm trying to simplify it here by giving a simple example. I don't know if that helps explain a little bit.
I think very, very much so. Yeah, I think you've done that very, very well because, as you say, it's exceptionally complex. So, I think that's given our listeners a real kind of good overview of cryptocurrency and blockchain. So, I guess moving into some of your more current pursuits, tell us more about the Crypto Curry Club and what it is and why you set it all up.
So, yeah, the Crypto Curries. I've been working.
I love the name, by the way. Just it out. I love the name.
Everyone else seems to react to the curry element as well. I'd been working in sort of the crypto blockchain space for a couple of years by when I started them. So I started the curries in October 2018. The sort of crypto blockchain space was quite isolated. Most of the time I was alone at a laptop, which was fine, but I wanted to meet more people and find out what other people were going, what they were doing, working on, and just meet other people in the space. So I made it a sort of pet project to meet more people in the space and spent about 3 months that summer going to all of the different networking events and talks and meetups in London. And I mean, there are some really good ones that are sort of technical and other focuses, but I found it really hard to meet people because the events were either just talks, and some of them were good, and a lot of them were just basically run by used car salesmen trying to take advantage of the space where you had an emerging technology. And this was following on from the whole sort of crypto ICO bubble, where you still had a lot of people walking around these events who were either there just for the free pizza or were just trying to basically scam other attendees. And I don't know, I found it hard to meet people, and I found it hard to know who to talk to. And most of the events were just sit down in rows and listen to a speaker who was often being charged to be there. So they were just giving sales pitches. And naturally, I suppose I find it quite difficult to go up to other strangers in a room and approach them and strike up a conversation. I think I'm with most people in that. So I wanted a way that was easier to meet people. And I'd been previously to it was a Christmas curry for some property developers, and it was just the best networking event because you all sat around sharing food, and it was all invite only, and it was just good people in a room. So I thought we need this for the crypto and blockchain space, and the crypto curries were born. It was the logical name. It had to be curry because it's British national food and it sounds good. So just booked out an Indian restaurant that the same evening as I decided this is what we needed to do. Invited some people that I knew from the space, went through LinkedIn and invited a few other people that I thought looked interesting that were doing cool things in crypto and blockchain in London. And 25 people came and all said it was the best event they'd ever been to, and ended up staying, some of them until quite late in the evening. I think we started about 1 o'clock lunchtime. So it just kept on doing them. And then fast forward a year and a half later, they're, I think, now the most popular events, or probably the biggest events in crypto and blockchain in the UK. And we've got a few other subjects now. We've got some AI events and some about tech for sustainability.
Yeah, no, that's great. And congratulations on everything you've done thus far. Your events do sound amazing. I know some of the upcoming events you've got as well are going to be pretty cool. So definitely people should check out your LinkedIn and your sort of pages to get more information on that. The other kind of, I guess, which has probably organically grown, is the future of money curries as well. Do you want to sort of tell people a bit more about that and how that sort of concept came about?
Yeah, well, they were sort of totally organic because, I mean, the crypto curries started being more about blockchain, or about a mix, I guess, of crypto and blockchain, just general networking. And then I guess as they got more popular, I think I just had some speakers that were talking about the future of money. So I thought that would be a good name for them. And there were some that were themed just about that, really, more about crypto being used for payments and what was happening with the latest payment technologies, be that crypto or be that more mobile digital payments. So that just kind of evolved just as a natural offshoot, that there were naturally some people and some subjects that were more about the payment side. And now the core crypto curries are more about blockchain, and the future of money ones are about crypto. So the names are slightly deceptive, but I like to think that they're both still fun events.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well said. And we will have lots of legal people obviously listening into this podcast. And I think you said before you love talking to lawyers about all things sort of crypto and blockchain. What are maybe some of the common questions they ask you to put you on the spot?
We have a lot of lawyers at the different events. I think they're quite keen to learn, and a number of them host and sponsor the carries, which is very good of them. What they want to know, I think lawyers are really keen to meet a lot of the startups and the companies in the ecosystem. And I think what's really exciting about this space is there's so many really, really innovative startups and scale-ups working in the space that are just coming up with these technologies that are so far advanced of anything else. And it's in that sense, it's a really exciting space to be in, because you've got a lot of really smart, successful people who've left well-paying jobs that were, founders of banks or really senior C-suite of sort of the global banks, from GCHQ, from really high up positions in global enterprises, leaving those jobs to found startups or to be a part of a crypto or blockchain startup on way lower pay than they'd ever be getting. But they know that what they're doing is just so much more innovative. And also, I mean, I guess that they know that the money they'll walk over in a few years' time is probably bigger than their old salary would have been. But you've got these incredible people that are just coming up with these amazing companies. And there's so many exciting startups in the space. So I think a lot of the lawyers want to meet the startups and find out what they're doing and learn from them a bit. But also it's good for them to know what these companies are doing, because then they often end up introducing them to their own clients or making partnerships from there. And also just to keep an ear on the ground as to what's actually happening in the space. We've got quite a few people from big companies who come, and that's pretty much their aim at the events, to meet, make some friends, meet good people, maybe make partnerships, and just to keep an eye on what's actually happening in the space.
Yeah. And listen, everyone likes to think they know the right, they're backing the right cryptocurrency, the right altcoin, coin, whatever it may be. Again, putting you on the spot a little bit, which cryptocurrency do you most believe in?
I mean, Bitcoin. I think the crypto markets have changed a lot in the sense that it used to be that if some people were invested in some of the altcoins early on, you could do really well. But the markets have changed a lot. It's really manipulated, and they're so affected by external events. And I mean, what we've found now and what you see is, if you look at most of the cryptos out there, I mean, I think the SEC determined, I think it was 83% that they said were scams, and I think they're being generous. The most of them really have no use case, no business plan, and were just put together by individuals pretty much aiming to get rich quick. And for a while that was possible in the whole boom. And there are a number of other really good projects out there, but I guess my belief in Bitcoin is more that it's got first mover advantage, and you've got it being accepted in so many more places now than other currencies. I'd say probably Bitcoin Cash is another one. Second to that, they've done a lot of marketing, and they've been very, very good about trying to get adoption around the world. But I would say Bitcoin, it's the one that's most accepted and the most known everywhere else, and it's very secure. So whilst it's far from perfect, it could do with being faster, cheaper, have more transactions, various things. It's still the most known and the most used by a long way.
Yeah, no, well said. And yeah, as I say, you speak to lots of different people, and they're always saying, well, no, this, Ripple's going to have a comeback, whatever it may be, Ethereum and everything else. But yeah, it's good to speak to someone that's kind of shall we say, a traditionalist in the sense of, still backing Bitcoin and where it could get to.
I think on that note, I mean, I think what will come out of crypto, it will change a lot. You've now got national banks and governments looking at launching national digital currencies. The Bank of England recently launched a paper about that. You've got China very soon to be launching one. I think there will be much more of a move to nationalize digital currencies and what they call sort of stable coins. So Facebook were pretty famous about coming out with their Libra attempt, which hasn't worked out yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if something similar to that does come out, where you've got basically an international currency that payments can be made with without having to do foreign exchange, without having to convert into different fiat currencies, where payments can be made for all digital items. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that comes out. And I don't think that would be Bitcoin, purely because you need a currency that has just a much bigger ability to scale and send much more transactions much faster.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you touched on it there. It was going to be my next question, actually, from the international angle. How far behind do you think the UK is compared to, say, the US, China, in emerging tech? Or are we not behind? Are we very much at the table?
In blockchain, in crypto, I think we're doing really good. So apparently London specifically is the second biggest hub in the world after Silicon Valley. And certainly if you look at London, there's such an amazing enterprise infrastructure there. And I mean, you've got the enterprise side, but you've also got the startups. You've got so much innovation going on there, and such a big sort of blockchain crypto scene there now. So I'd say London is doing well for that. That saying, I listened to an audiobook recently by Kai-Fu Lee. It's called, I think, AI Superpowers. So he was head of Google in China. And he's just making the point how far ahead China are, way head and shoulders above everyone else in AI and in research and in investment, specifically in AI, but in other technologies as well. And to the point that that's quite scary, especially if you look at how fast AI learning can go. So he made the point that AI are really, really ahead. The US are second, and we're far behind.
Based on that, it's a case that we're doing okay, but let's just see how things pan out, right?
I think the UK, I mean, this is going into politics, but I think one thing that would be amazing, especially after Brexit, if the UK could really focus on the emerging tech innovation scene. We've got a really good, talented pool of people working in space, and it would be really great to focus on that as a country. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well said. I think you gave a good indication there and a good overview. In terms of sort of, events that I touched on there that you've got coming up, and, how can people learn or hear more who might spark their interest in wanting to learn more about cryptocurrency? Tell people more how they can kind of maybe come to some of your events or get involved.
Yeah, well, all of the events are virtual at the moment until life goes back to normal. So we've got a bunch of events going on. We've got virtual carries at our networking events. We've got a quiz starting very soon, just a community binding quiz. And we've also got more educational webinars, so interactive educational webinars once a week as well. So there's a number of virtual events going on that anyone can join in. And we've got every Friday, we've got the Crypto Carrier that goes out. So that's our newsletter. It's all of the latest weekly news about crypto, blockchain, and payments. So we go through all of the main events and news that have happened that week and just summarize them in really simple, easy to read terms. So you can very quickly get everything you need to know, or if you want to expand and get more information, you can click and read much more from that. So that's probably everything everyone needs to know about that week's events. That's totally free. And I'm guessing, Rob, you'll share the link for that with the webinar.
Of course, most definitely. And it's worth pointing out as well, you host your very own podcast as well, which people can listen to.
We do, yeah. We've started the Crypto Carry Cast, which we started recording before coronavirus, and we'll continue to do so when we're back in the studio. And we're not quite as brave as you, I'm afraid, trying to record from home. And we've also got the LinkedIn page, Crypto Carrier Club, where we post all updates of all the latest events and happenings.
Yeah, good stuff. And you do some lecturing as well at the business schools. Do you want to tell people a bit more about
Warwick. That is one of my favorite things to do. It's super fun. So yeah, so I don't know, at the moment it's probably every couple months or so, I spend a day or so up there lecturing about crypto to their MBA and master's students, which is absolutely incredible. They're an incredibly bright and inquisitive group of people there, and that's a real honor and a lot of fun.
Yeah, good stuff. And you also, again, just part of your many hats that you wear and things that you do, tell us more about your mentoring work for fintech and blockchain startups generally.
I'd say limited at the moment. No, I'm far too busy with everything, with the events and the work. For example, WeWork had reached out about running a blockchain lab and being a mentor to that, but from my understanding, that's been put temporarily on hold due to various issues lately.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And in terms of some of the challenges you see ahead for cryptocurrency, what do you think are going to be some of the, and I appreciate it's $1 million question, but some of the common challenges you see or hear or from people you know in industry, what are some of the sort of challenges ahead for it?
I mean, one thing, and I guess on the legal side is regulation. It's still not really clear. And I think if we had some more clear regulation around the whole space, that would really help companies. And just a practicality, for example, for crypto or blockchain companies to get a bank account, it's virtually impossible. The minute you mention the word crypto or blockchain, you're pretty much rejected from anything. And that's been the case for a lot of startups. So there's now one or two of the challenger banks that will accept crypto or blockchain companies, but that's been a real hurdle. But I think as more and more challenger banks get bigger, I think that will hopefully change. The other main thing I would say is just media perception. there was so much negativity around the whole space to do with the whole crypto bubble and all of the ICOs, the initial coin offerings that were launched in mostly 2017 and early 2018. And most people a lot of people don't necessarily understand that there was a difference between some of the sort of the ICO bubble and things like Bitcoin and digital currency and blockchain. It's all been put into one negative sort of pool. And the media haven't helped. You've still got newspapers like the Financial Times relatively recently wrote the gist was that all of blockchain is going to collapse because the price of Bitcoin has gone down, and didn't seem to realize that the two were slightly different. So there's a lot of, I'd say, media misunderstanding and a lot of misunderstanding about what the whole tech space is. So it would be really good to have a lot of maybe even media present at some of the events and conferences just to learn more about the space and to write maybe a little bit more objectively. And I think if people were able to differentiate between what blockchain is, what crypto is, what Bitcoin is, what ICOs were, and to see that the whole thing isn't necessarily a scam, that would probably help the market. But that is changing, and you've got a lot more enterprises and a lot more companies, global companies are all pretty much now have crypto and blockchain teams and task forces. And I think it will become much more mainstream. So I think it's just a matter of time, I hope.
Yeah, and you're very, very right there in terms of media, because it's about education, isn't it? It's about educating people so people can write, objective, and if they're going to critique, then it's at least based on facts or better understanding. So I think you make a very valid point there. And again, if it's becoming more mainstream equally, or it is going to be more mainstream, then it's just got to be more accessible for people to get a better understanding. And so they kind of know and can make smarter decisions or become more immersed and just have a greater level of understanding. So there needs to be more resources out there available just for every Tom, Dick and Harry on the street, ultimately.
Yeah, yes. I think I'm very much a believer that we'll end up within the next few years using crypto and blockchain in everything we do, be that for sending payments or be that every time we buy food by scanning an app to see where it comes from. There's some incredible apps and technologies out there that will very soon become mainstream. I mean, just there's one example of just some of the companies that come to Currys. There's an app called Almond where you can scan a product and see exactly where a food has come from. Which it just offers a whole new level of transparency above what we've got at the moment. Or Tracer, for example, they're working with De Beers, the diamond company, and some of the diamond companies about providing it's on blockchain, but you can track diamonds all the way back to the mine, so they can prove that they're not blood diamonds, for example, and that they're real authentic diamonds. So you can track the whole life journey of the diamond. So I think there's so many incredible use cases coming out that will just become mainstream very soon, and then people end up using the tech without knowing, and I think that's when it will become more accepted and adopted.
Yeah. So do you think people will be getting in their monthly pay packets, or the way they're being paid might look quite differently in the future?
No, I don't think so. I think much as it would be amazing to subsist of a currency that isn't entirely centralized and isn't entirely at the whim of whichever bank or government that you live in the country of to press print on the money machine. No, I don't think that's realistic. I don't think for example, pay packages will change that much. I think that would be an enormous change. And maybe there's some countries in the world where economies have just really lost all sense. For example, Venezuela, for example, or maybe Argentina soon, where there's such high inflation and the sort of the concept of fiat hasn't really worked recently. Maybe there's some countries where they'll be more willing to accept looking at some new form of digital currency as a national currency. But no, I think at least in the UK for a while, we'll still be receiving our pay packages in sterling.
There we go. Well, that's a good way to kind of wrap up. Erica, thank you so much for all of your insights. I think you've really kind of shed a lot of light there on lots of things, all things crypto and blockchain. And look, wishing you the very best of luck with all of your current pursuits. People should definitely check out the Crypto Curry Club, and we'll share, as you say, all the relevant links after this when we do produce the podcast. So thanks so much for coming on, and over and out.
Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you at some curries soon. And a lot of people do ask, they do actually have real curry and drinks at the event.
Good, clarifying. Good stuff. Thanks, Erica.